G'day guys and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to tell you a cautionary tale about getting some work done on a synthetic stock. Now, synthetic stocks aren't the easiest thing to work with, which is why people generally don't do bedding work on synthetic stocks. Yes, you can glass bed them, but when you need to re-mill things or recut actual inletting, that is very hard on a synthetic. So what we have is a Zastava M70 trying to get fit into a Champion slash Ram line slash Butler Creek, they're all pretty much the same thing, stock. And because this is inletted for a standard Mauser 98, there are some variations, which is why an M70 will not fit. So originally this guy did reach out to me and ask me to do the job. He's in Sydney, I'm in Brisbane. You know, I said, yeah, I can do that. He said, no, I found someone else in Sydney and they did the job, and the result is what the result is. Now, he reached back out to me and said, hey, I've had some issues with, you know, what I've had done. And I actually offered to fix it for him for free because I felt bad for him that he'd paid a fair amount of money to have this done and it wasn't done to the standard that he would have liked. Now, I don't know who this person was. I don't know anything about who did the work. I'm not going to speculate on that. I'm just going to show you what the work looked like. What he wanted done was on the Zastava M70, we have this button, which you need to have a relief cut here. So obviously you don't have that on this rifle, so that needs to get cut. He also wanted it cut in here for the safety, which normally sits on the side on a Zastava as opposed to an M98. They're normally up on the bolt shroud. And he wanted the front recoil lug slightly manipulated so it would sit better in the stocks. I think it was sitting a little bit too high. And then what he got back was not exactly what he wanted. So I filmed some footage before I started working on it, so we'll flick over to that and then we'll jump back in and explain what I did. So as we can see here, we've got two of these stocks. Now this one on the top, this one is the one that was sent in with all of the inletting work done, and this one is a stock standard one of the exact same make, showing you what it would have looked like before the work was completed. At the back here we can see that the tang part has been slightly widened. We can see there's a cut being put in here for the safety. We can see down the back here where they've actually machined back to fit the trigger. So you can see this wall is a lot thinner than this one, and there's also a hole straight through it. So from the inside, if you can make that out, there's a hole straight through. Inletted all of this for the trigger. On this particular one, this one's already been milled. Just the slot for on these ones, on the Zastavas, they have a block that will go through from the trigger, from the safety, that will stop the bolt from opening on safe. Now on this version, this one's already inletted, and it was just with a groove. This one, they've cut the entire block out. And as we move back to here, we can see the size difference for the recoil lug. So that's how it would have been standard. This is how they've made it. I don't understand why they've made it so big and so wide, and also looks like they've made this hole bigger as well. Kind of fitting okay. It just looks a bit messy. All right, I'll leave that bottom metal in there for now. Let's flip these over. Now on the bottom, what they don't have on when you buy these, because it's not for a Zastava, is this is all smoothed off because you don't have a release there, whereas on the Zastavas you have a button release for the floor plate on the side. As such, you need to have grooves put into it. However, it's not really wide enough, it's not really in the right spot, and the other side is even worse because they're not symmetrical. Very rough. So I don't think that's been done with a mill, I think that's been done with a Dremel, as with the rest of the inletting. So with the action installed into the stock, we can see some of the errors here, particularly this side, because that gap should not be there. It should be more akin to that. So I don't know why so much material is removed from here. It's not really the correct way of doing it. As I pointed before, this one seems wider, and we can see that it's wider than the tang, and it looks like this has been purposely widened. I don't know why you would do that either, because it looks a lot better when it's a tighter fit. Okay, so we'll start on the bottom. As you can see, we've done a relief cut across here. Now this was actually done with a ball nose end mill in the mill, And as you can see, that is a much smoother cut than what it was. It's a little bit bigger than what it needs to be, and that's purely because there was so much material already taken out with the very ugly and poorly done cut that it took a little bit more material to clear that out. But that's a nice smooth cut now. Now the problem with milling synthetic stocks is because they are plastic, if you run your cutters too fast and they get too hot, you can actually melt the plastic and then your edges get all weird. Even with a sharp cutter and keeping it cool, you can still get these weird fluffy edges, so that'll all get cleared up either with the very sharp edge of a craft knife or with very, very, very fine sandpaper. So we've done that cut across there. The bottom is now fitting quite nicely. So you can see there, clearance for our button. On the top here, we added some material back into here to take out that extra wide cut we had there. And then the front recoil lug has been rebedded to return some of that extra material that was removed. Now, when bedding a synthetic stock, I tend to not use really, really hard bedding compounds like titanium Devcon, because I do find that they end up cracking because synthetic stocks have a very large amount of flex in them. And no matter how hard that bedding is, it's not going to bond correctly to the synthetic if it's not flexible enough. Generally, I use a softer bedding material. On this particular one, I used Acroglass, and it's a bit more movable. It's not rock hard, and that way it's not going to crack and fail on you. I'm not trying to completely shit can what the original guy did. I just want to show you that no matter how good you are, it is very, very hard to do on a synthetic stock, which is why it's not typically done. It's typically done on a wood stock because it is a hell of a lot easier, or even a carbon fiber or a fiberglass where you can just completely rebed it. Because there's less flex in those materials, it leads itself to bedding a hell of a lot better, so you can actually do a lot more with it. You can rebed something, remachine it, if you're using a really hard bedding compound like titanium Devcon, which is great because you can machine it. You know, when you're doing a synthetic stock, it is a hard thing to do. Don't do it with a Dremel, because if you get the tool hot, which Dremels do get hot, particularly if you're using some sort of like a sanding disc or, you know, a carbide burr on it or whatever, they will get hot, they will melt the plastic, and then you'll end up with a very, very rough finish. If you do want to do that with something, you need to hand finish it with sandpaper. So let's, for instance, if you're doing this rounded part, wrap the sandpaper around a dowel of the same diameter and then sand it out until it goes smooth. If you're going to glass bed, don't use a bedding compound that's super hard, because as the stock flexes, that will crack and come out. I've seen that fail many, many times. So I hope you got something out of that video. Hope it was informative. I'll catch you next video, and hooroo.